Hi everybody, welcome to the South Australian Sports Show. I hope you can stay with us for the next hour. We have got plenty coming up on the show. We've got a couple of grand final players in from the women's SANFL. We're going to talk about wheelchair footy. Lots to talk about on the show. The Great Southern Footy League and the Southern Footy League. Of course, they clash this weekend at Strathalbyn. And as always, the co-host, Barry Curtin. Baz, how are you?
Oh, I'm good, mate, but I went to the wardrobe department and they said, Baz, put your shirt on. And I said, well, hang on a minute, what about the general? He's got the Australian. Is there a change of wardrobe? Did I get one of them? No.
Well, see, the difference is, of course, you get the VIP car park because you're old and you can't move around. I have to come from half a kilometre away, so I get the jacket on so I can avoid the rain.
You can keep the jacket.
And then not only that, mate, you tap on my window while it's pouring with rain with the umbrella thinking, what a great bloke Baz is. He's called to get me under the umbrella and you're gone.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to show you that I had an umbrella.
No, I appreciate that. So, truth be known, actually, I left my shirt behind and put this jacket on, so I had something to say. Hey, I want to talk to you about a couple of things. Let's talk about, and I don't want to labour on this one for too long, but of course, the Adelaide Crows fined $50,000 for a couple of players not wearing their mask on the plane. And I'm not trying to defend it, accept that it's happened, understand what's happened, but I just want to offer this, that when you travel all the time, you start to get a bit blasé about things.
Absolutely.
So I'm not saying that this is the defence, and again, they've paid the fine, they've done the crime, everyone's accepted that, but I think when you're looking at Tex and those blokes, from time to time you get on the plane and you get into zombie mode almost. You go, oh, here we go again, and you just, okay, I've eaten my meal, put my mask down, and you're just not thinking. For us that travel, or the people that travel once a year, you're really strict on it, you know, and I've watched different teams, be them footy, be them soccer, be them the netball girls, travelling through the airport. And they, again, when they're doing it all the time, you start to become a bit lax. So I think it's more that being complacent that led to it than anything else.
Yeah. I just think, okay, and I see your point. Adelaide's problem is that it's a second offence. And it's and the first one was a bit of a worry. But they're not going to get away with anything less than a $50,000 fine. If it was their first crack, maybe it might have been a bit lighter.
Yeah.
But I don't think in these times, Phil, mate, and I know what you're saying here, most teams probably do it and whatever, but you can't. Not in these times.
Okay, let me.
I
agree with that, and the AFL is being really stringent to keep the. So I 100% support them. But let me ask you, this is a follow-up question for you.
Yeah.
If you're on the plane and you saw a couple of players, whatever sport, with their masks on, would you approach the player and say, "Hey, you need to pop your mask on, mate," or would you go to the coach or the manager and say, "Hey, a couple of your players are sitting back there," or would you take his sneaky photo and give it to the media?
I don't think I'd do any of it.
What would you do?
I wouldn't be doing any of it.
Yep.
I wouldn't be going to the coach, I wouldn't be going to the player, and I certainly wouldn't be taking a photo. That sounds to me like it was a bit of a sneaky photo that was taken. But, you know, Phil, in all that, mate...
I understand. It's just... Wouldn't it have been easier to walk up to someone and say, hey, a couple of players need to have their mask on. You guys need to have your mask on.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, instead of, here's a $50,000 fine here, it just...
Yeah. But it's a
mobile
second
phones,
offence, mate.
I understand, second offence, but, you know, anyway. Adam Goods saying no to being inducted into the Australian Footy Hall of Fame. He said he couldn't accept the honour because of the way he was booed at the end of the game, and he still doesn't feel great after his 372 games. I'd like to sit with Goodsy and just speak to him about it, you know, because a lot of people are going to speculate now.
They have already.
And I'm making that as a quote that was written.
Yeah.
I just reckon Adam's a really good bloke.
Yeah.
And if that's how he feels, then that's how he feels.
Yeah.
You know, people go, oh, he needs to move on and get on with it. You go, well, and he's already said, I don't want to take anything away from the awards night. I'm just not ready yet.
Yeah, you know, this is a funny one. I mean, I don't believe that Adam Goods was booed because of his race, because of his colour. I believe Adam Goods was booed because he was a bit of a diver, like a few others got booed. For diving.
Early towards the end, he did get booed for that.
And I think it got carried away. Everybody got carried away. Everyone started booing him.
Yeah.
But not booing him because of his colour. This gets me. I think he's got to toughen up.
So you think
I don't think, but it's not a racist thing.
Yeah.
I don't think this is a racist issue. I get a bit tired of the racist issue.
Yeah.
When I don't believe that it is. That has racist overtones. And Goodsy, great player. Should have known that he was not being booed because of his colour. Because there were other Indigenous players on the ground playing with him who didn't get booed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
So,
Again, I'd
you know,
like to
you
talk
got-
to Adam and just ask him why he feels that way.
And I'd
So
love to speak to
understand
Adam
that.
too, because he's one of the great players to watch.
Such a good bloke.
Terrific player to watch.
Yeah.
I've heard him speak, and he speaks extremely well. But I think he's just gone over the top with the racist card. I just think he's gone a bit over the top, and he should have just let it go. I think one day he will be ready. I think one day he will come into the Hall of Fame. But you know, to not accept the lap of honour, little things like that. Well, you know, look, many other Indigenous players have done that lap of honour, and a few of them are in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And I can't ever remember any of them being booed. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I understand where you're coming from. I get the point you're making.
Pickett's and Burgoynes and all these blokes, Andy McLeod, they never got booed.
No, I think the point that you're making is valid in that you see it that he was getting booed as a diver.
Yeah.
Had nothing to do with whether
Nothing
he was
to do with the
black
race.
or white
Nothing to
or
do with the
green or
colour.
yellow. Hey, we need to get over to Jamie to find out what is going on in the sporting news. Jamie?
Thanks, guys. I'm Jamie, and I'll be taking you through SA Sports Show's weekly wrap-up of local news. Glenelg Football Club earned their first SA NFLW Grand Final win last Saturday, closing out a memorable 40-17 point win against West Adelaide. The opening goal of the match was kicked almost instantly by Jess Seal, who secured it within the first 24 seconds of the game. She certainly got her message across to the Westies. For the Bloods, although Sarah Duggan scored a goal to reduce the gap to 12 points at around half-time, they just weren't able to pull through. Ebony Marinoff kicked the final goal of the match with a minute to spare after a clean setup by Chelsea Packer. Marinoff acquired 31 disposals, 5 clearances, 5 tackles and 2 goals, only to be presented later on with the Best On-Ground medal. Glenelg's coach, Jason Farrell, says every single member of the squad worked their backside off to secure such a triumphant victory. Australia's women's Olympic softball team have touched down in Japan ahead of this year's Tokyo Olympics, including Mount Gambier's very own Georgia Hood. The 20-year-old is just one of the team's 23 players currently quarantining in Ota City, 15 of which will compete in the actual Olympic Games. After not making the final roster of the Olympic team in 2020, Georgia received a second chance due to COVID-19 and the postponement of the event. Georgia says that although each of the players on the team are competing for a spot, they'll be happy for each other in the end, no matter what happens. In the AFL, the Adelaide Crows unfortunately didn't make any strides last Saturday at Adelaide Oval. They enabled Collingwood to claim the win, who came into the match having only previously won 2 games. The coach of the Crows, Matthew Nix, says that his crew entered the match with a game plan in mind, but did not play like they had intended to. Just hours before the game began, the Crows received a $50,000 fine due to certain players and officials who did not comply with face mask protocols on a recent flight back from Sydney. Coach Nix disregarded the claims that this affected the team's poor performance in their battle against Collingwood, leaving the Crows in 15th place on the ladder. We'll see if they can redeem themselves in their match against St Kilda tomorrow. And now for some big news for South Australian basketball. A $15 million investment from the Marshall Liberal government means that SA will soon have a new state basketball centre. This centre will be home to Basketball SA, Adelaide Lightning, SA Country Basketball, as well as SA Wheelchair Basketball. Many jobs will be created throughout the construction of the centre, which will be built on as an extension to the Wayville Sports Centre at Unley. Local, district, state and national league teams will all be training from the new venue, which will serve as a hub for community and high-performance basketball. Construction will begin for the facility in 2021 after the completion of the Royal Adelaide Show. After being beaten by 1 goal last week in Super Netball, the Thunderbirds have bounced back with a win against the Melbourne Vixens. The intense 54-48 point win was well fought by both teams, with the Thunderbirds ultimately being led by their goalkeeper, Shamira Sterling. Sterling finished with 7 gains, 3 intercepts and 3 pickups, working with Latanya Wilson to prevent the Vixens from actually moving the ball up the court. The Thunderbirds will verse the New South Wales Swifts tomorrow at the Adelaide Entertainment Centre. That's all I've got for you this evening. Be sure to stick around because we've got much more on the way. I'm Jamie Tenikoff and we'll be right back after the break.